The orphanage in New Bristol was built on a hill so the children could see the ocean. Every morning they counted ships instead of stars, pretending each one was a parent coming back for them. The war in orbit had never reached the ground before, and Earth still believed itself protected by treaties and distance. That belief ended at 09:42 local time. The sky did not roar or scream, it went silent first. Birds fell out of the air as if the world had forgotten how to hold them. Then the light came, white and absolute, washing the hill clean of shadows. The alien strike cruiser never targeted military bases, it chose symbols. The orphanage shield failed in less than a second, designed for storms, not weapons. Children were holding hands when the blast wave arrived. Some never felt pain, others had time only to look up. The building vanished into fire and dust. Across Earth, emergency channels filled with screaming and disbelief. Politicians called it a tragic mistake, diplomats begged for clarification. The alien Dominion responded with silence. They had already sent their message. In the rubble, rescue drones found a single data slate melted but readable. It showed drawings, stick figures of humans and stars. One page was titled Tomorrow. Tomorrow never came for them. That image spread faster than any official statement. Parents saw their lost children in every line drawn. Soldiers saw something worse than an enemy. They saw intent. And for the first time in 3 centuries, humanity stopped asking why and started asking how far. The United Earth Council met within the hour. Their chamber had survived asteroid impacts and coups, but never this kind of silence. No one argued about responsibility. There was only the question of response. Admirals presented casualty estimates while diplomats still clung to protocol. They spoke of restraint, escalation, moral high ground. Then the image of the orphanage appeared on the central display. No annotations, no commentary. The youngest counselor stood up shaking. She had grown up in a state orphanage herself. She did not shout or cry. She simply said peace had already been broken. Military AI projections were unsealed for the first time. Scenarios labeled forbidden appeared in red. Total war was one of them. A doctrine designed not to win battles, but to end civilizations. For generations, it had been humanity's shameful secret. A contingency plan no one believed would ever be used. It meant mobilizing every shipyard, every factory, every mind. It meant survival at the cost of innocence. The vote passed unanimously. There was no applause. Only the sound of systems activating across the solar system. Mars shipyards burned night and day. Civilian industries were converted without protest. Artists became signal designers, teachers trained drone swarms. Children were evacuated from cities and taught evacuation drills instead of songs. Humanity did not rage, it focused. A single broadcast went out to the stars. It contained no threats, no demands. Only a statement. You have mistaken our mercy for weakness. The first counterstrike did not target a capital world. It targeted supply lines. Alien fleets discovered their fuel depots gone before alarms finished sounding. Logistics became a nightmare written in fire. Human war doctrine changed overnight. No more decisive battles. Only relentless pressure. Every system contested, every orbit denied. Total war meant no sanctuary. Human hackers infiltrated alien economic networks. Currencies collapsed, populations panicked. The Dominion had never fought a species that weaponized persistence. Captured alien officers spoke of fear. Not of death, but of exhaustion. Humans did not retreat when wounded. They adapted. On Earth, memorials were built even as factories expanded. The Orphanage Hill remained untouched. A ring of white stones marked where the building had stood. Every soldier learned its name during training. Human fleets began painting a small symbol on their hulls. A simple childlike drawing of a house under a star. Aliens thought it was decorative. They learned otherwise. World after world fell into isolation as human blockade nets tightened. The Dominion tried negotiations again. This time humanity did not answer. Total war had no pause button. Soldiers wrote messages on missile casings. Not curses, but names. Every strike remembered someone. Every impact was personal. And somewhere beyond the front lines, alien civilians began asking why the humans would not stop. Years passed, measured in campaigns instead of seasons. Humanity won, but did not celebrate. Victory reports read like obituaries. Every gain was paid for in silence. The Dominion fractured under pressure. Client species rebelled, supply worlds surrendered. The Empire collapsed inward like a dying star. Total war worked exactly as designed. At the final stronghold, human commanders hesitated. One order could end it all. But it would also erase billions who had never seen Earth. The Orphanage Memorial was streamed into the command room. The decision was altered, not cancelled. The strike focused on military infrastructure only. The Dominion capitulated within hours. The war ended without a cheer. Returning soldiers found Earth changed. Children spoke of evacuation drills like normal memories. The sky felt closer somehow, more watched. Peace was no longer innocent. Trials were held, records opened, histories written. The bombing of the orphanage was declared a crime without justification. The Dominion's leaders vanished into imprisonment or obscurity. But justice felt incomplete. Humanity dismantled the total war framework, locked it behind layers of law and memory, swearing never to use it again, knowing the promise was fragile. On the hill, grass grew back slowly. Decades later, alien children learned a human story in school. It was about an orphanage on a blue world, about a day when mercy ended, and restraint was learned the hard way. Humans rebuilt the orphanage nearby, larger, stronger, surrounded by gardens. Children still counted ships on the horizon, but now they also counted stars. Every year at 09:42, Earth went quiet for 1 minute. Traffic stopped, broadcasts paused, weapons powered down. The silence was not for anger. It was for remembrance. Humanity became known across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as a species that would endure anything for its young, and forgive almost nothing when they were harmed. The stars did not fear humans. They respected them, because total war had shown what happened when humanity stood up fully, and what it chose to stand down from. On the hill, a plaque stood with no dates, only words etched deep into stone. Never again mistaken for weak. Never again forced to prove it. And somewhere in the dark between systems, the universe remembered that day. The day an orphanage burned, and humanity introduced total war. The war ended, but the galaxy did not return to how it had been before. Victory did not restore simplicity. Peace arrived carrying weight instead of relief. Humanity had crossed a threshold that could never be uncrossed. In the years after the surrender, alien civilizations rebuilt with caution. Trade resumed slowly, diplomacy carefully worded. Every species now studied human history as required reading. Not out of curiosity, but survival instinct. The phrase total war was never translated directly. Most languages lacked the emotional equivalent. It was explained instead as a state where restraint dies first, and efficiency becomes a form of grief. Human veterans rarely spoke about the fighting. When they did, it was never about heroism. They talked about waiting, endurance, repetition, about pressing forward long after anger had burned out. Psychologists called it perseverance fatigue, the exhaustion of never being allowed to stop, the knowledge that quitting would only prolong suffering, that the fastest way out was through. Children born after the war grew up under layered skis, orbital defenses visible like artificial constellations. They learned star maps the way previous generations learned geography. Threat awareness became cultural background noise. Schools taught first contact etiquette alongside mathematics. Every student memorized the orphanage incident by adolescence, not as propaganda, but as context, a reminder of cause and consequence. Alien diplomats visiting Earth were always taken to the hill. The memorial had expanded into a ring of white stone and living trees. No guards stood there. None were needed. Visitors described the place as heavy, not because of sorrow alone, but because of what humanity had been willing to become, and what it had chosen not to finish. Historians argued endlessly about that final restraint. Some claimed it proved moral superiority. Others argued it was strategic calculation. Most agreed it was both. Among the stars, smaller powers adjusted doctrine quietly. Civil defense budgets increased. Rules of engagement became stricter. No one wanted to be the next lesson. Piracy declined sharply. Border skirmishes ended faster. Even ancient rivalries cooled. The example had been too clear. Humanity did not posture or threaten. It did not demand tribute or territory. Its fleets patrolled shared trade routes, neutral and watchful. This unsettled some more than aggression ever had, because unpredictability had been replaced with certainty. Harm the innocent, and the response would be absolute. Within humanity itself, debate never truly ended. Artists questioned whether survival had cost too much soul. Philosophers asked whether total war was ever justifiable. Parents simply held their children closer. The rebuilt orphanage became a symbol beyond Earth, a destination for refugees, for children displaced by conflicts light years away. Humanity opened its doors without conditions. They did not call it charity. They called it prevention. Every saved child was one less reason for another war, one less spark. Some alien cultures struggled to understand this duality, how the same species could be devastatingly ruthless and deeply protective. The answer was always the same. Humans were not violent by nature. They were persistent by necessity. Once pushed beyond tolerance, they did not stop until the problem ceased to exist. Decades passed. Veterans aged, scars faded, memories did not. The phrase orphanage war entered common usage, a shorthand for irreversible escalation. New technologies emerged. Weapons more precise, defenses more subtle. Yet humanity archived the total war protocols unchanged, a reminder of what escalation truly meant. It was stored in deep vaults beneath Earth and Mars, protected not by firewalls but by consensus. Access required unanimous planetary agreement, a near impossible threshold. Some called this naive. Others called it responsible. Everyone agreed it was symbolic. The power existed, but choice governed it. 1 century after the bombing, a quiet ceremony was held. No fleets gathered, no speeches broadcast. Children placed drawings around the memorial stones. Stars, houses, hands. An alien child asked a human teacher why the war had started. The teacher answered simply, because someone believed kindness was weakness, and acted on that belief. The child asked why humanity had stopped before total annihilation. The teacher paused, because becoming unstoppable does not mean becoming unrecognizable. Because ending a war is different from erasing a people. That distinction became humanity's true legacy. Not total war itself, but the restraint shown after proving it could be done. Power demonstrated and then deliberately sheathed. Galactic law evolved accordingly. New conventions focused on civilian protection. On orphanages, hospitals, shelters. Named zones of absolute prohibition. Violating them carried consequences written in history. No enforcement body needed to threaten action. The precedent was enough. Memory became deterrence. Explorers traveling beyond mapped space reported reactions when they identified as human. Not fear, but cautious respect and careful behavior. The story had traveled faster than any ship. Passed from culture to culture. Simplified, exaggerated, mythologized. But never forgotten. Some versions said humanity burned worlds. Others said they shattered empires with patience alone. The truth was quieter and heavier. Humanity had learned that war was not about anger. It was about resolve, and that the most terrifying thing a species could do was refuse to stop once justified. Back on Earth, the hill remained unchanged. No buildings, no commercialization. Just wind, grass, and stone. Children visited on school trips. They were told they were not there to feel guilt, nor pride, but responsibility, to understand the cost of carelessness. As the stars grew more crowded, a new species emerged into the galactic community. They were told the same story, early, clearly, without embellishment. This is what happens when lines are crossed. This is what happens when innocence is targeted. This is what humanity did once, and hopes never to repeat. The galaxy adjusted its behavior accordingly. Borders softened. Negotiations slowed but deepened. War became rarer but more feared. And somewhere far from Earth, on a quiet world that never heard the first shot, a historian wrote a final line in a record meant to endure. That humanity did not win the war when it began total war. It won when it chose when to stop. When it proved that absolute power could coexist with restraint. When the orphanage became not a rallying cry, but a warning etched into collective memory. The universe did not forget the fire, but it remembered the silence afterward. The deliberate pause. The choice to rebuild instead of erase. And so the stars learned a simple truth. That humanity would never be the first to end peace, but it would always be the last to end a war.